You are now listening to the More Than an Admin podcast with Mallory Rothstein. For more, visit morethananadmin.com. And if you haven't already, make sure you go subscribe to this podcast. Thank you and enjoy this episode. What's up, More Than an Admin community? I'm your host, Mallory, and we are at episode number 7 of the More Than an Admin podcast. Today, we are joined by someone who I think has the best energy ever, Samina Azam, who is an executive assistant at Microsoft, also the founder of Oculus Creative Learning, a lecturer at the Lifestyle Institute by AlbertaLaGrup, a life coach, a host, an international speaker, and someone I definitely admire who is currently based in the UK. And we first met because I happened to see her LinkedIn profile, which we were just previously talking about. I don't even know how I saw it, when she was a temp at Google. And I try to connect with as many admins at Google as possible, especially on LinkedIn. So we set up some one-on-one time, and then the rest is history. She became a huge supporter of our More Than an Admin chapter at Google, and she's someone that I really admire and see as a role model, not just as an admin, but as a human being. And I don't say that lightly. And I'm sure through this conversation, you'll find out a glimpse of why. So Samina, welcome to the More Than an Admin podcast. I am so grateful you were able to make time out of your busy schedule to join us today so that our community can get to know you better. So how are you doing? And what is one person, place, or thing that has brought you joy today?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Mal. What an introduction. Wow. What has brought me joy today is literally being here on this podcast and being part of this conversation. It's such a privilege. It truly is. And who could have known when you reached out this time, well, last year when I was contracting at Google, that we were going to be fast forward having this conversation. So powerful. You just can't know.
I know. I feel like, you reach out to people and you take a risk. And you know that it can either be one conversation you have with them or it's the start of such a friendship and something so much more. And I'm glad that we had the latter experience and we're here today.
Oh my gosh. So true. And you just can't know where that one connection on LinkedIn, that one conversation can take you. It is so powerful.
Yes. So, probably because I know you've listened before, the normal first question that I like to ask is, can you share a little bit about your upbringing and roots that have influenced who you are today and how you show up as an EA?
Okay, so some of my roots and background, I'll take you back to the 70s when I was born. Yes, that era when the Coke song, I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing, very iconic, was playing. And actually, fast forward, that was on my playlist. I absolutely love that song. So child of the 70s, born to Pakistani father and Irish mother. I grew up, let's say, in a very unsettled background. At the age, I think probably one of my first, pieces of the puzzle of my life that created who I am today was age around 10. It was summer holidays. And my parents were separated, so I was living with my father. And he said we were going on a trip, which was super exciting for me because I'd never been on an aeroplane before. And I remember when we were going to Pakistan, and I didn't speak the language, but was super excited to be going and meeting my father's relatives. And I never forget, that you have some of those memories as a child that you just never forget. And I remember when the plane landed and the door opened and the heat, that July heat that just hit me, I was like, oh my God, I've never had such heat hit me and never been in such a hot country. So that was super powerful. And then I remember the journey to the village, and it was a very rural village. And just to give you some background, it's not a motorway or freeway. It's a grit dirt road. For hours we travelled to get to the village. What I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know who I was going to meet. And then when I arrived, everybody was so pleased to see me, and my father introduced me to everyone. And really the only person I could connect with and speak with was my father's younger brother. He was the only family member who'd been to school. Everybody else was illiterate. And this was a completely different era. As my father's introducing me to everyone, we're going down the line. This is your grandfather. father, this is your grandmother, and this is your new mum. That was a real poignant moment in my life. And then realizing that there was no running water, there was no electricity, no gas. I mean, This is that era where, it was very rural, literally. And so when I stop to think now, at that moment, Mal, that was the beginning of grit and resilience rearing its head in my life like I never was going to know. Okay. So a couple of weeks into being there, I woke up one morning and my dad wasn't there. And I asked my uncle where my dad was, and my stepmom lived in a town, so quite a distance from our village. So he told me that my dad's gone to visit my mum, which of course makes sense. And then the following day, I woke up and asked, where's my dad? He still wasn't back. And as an innocent 10-year-old, you believe what you hear and you know no better. So my uncle starts to tell me a story, because we had no phone, we had no connection, but there was a phone in the post office in the main village where the shops were. So your dad had a phone call from the police back home in the UK, and his car got stolen. So he's had to go back. And in that moment, it's a moment that will live with me for the rest of my life, that scream or shriek or shrill, whatever you want to call it, that just came out of me and just, oh my gosh. And I just ran across the courtyard and I was absolutely beside myself. And remember, he's the only one I can talk to or connect with. And very quickly, I got to find out what the reason was behind it. So at that point, remember, we don't have phones. The way you would communicate would be to recording on a cassette player. Back in
a
the
throwback.
Day, retro.
Throwback.
Yes. Very retro. And that would get delivered. So this whole process would take a few weeks, to record and for you to receive it. And so on that recording, my dad says to me, it's so emotional hearing his voice, because, it's not as though you can just pick up a phone and speak to somebody, that you will stay there in that country until you cannot speak or write me a letter in Urdu. Once you can do that, then you can come back. And I wasn't enrolled in school, obviously. It was some holiday, I didn't plan this, didn't know. Well, I was a child, but I didn't know that was what was going to happen. Anyway, I was enrolled into the local school, and I then took 2 years, so year 1 and 2 in my first year, and I took year 3 and year 4 in my second year.
Wow.
And both years, Mal, I was top of the school. Okay. It's amazing what you can tell yourself that you need to do when you need to reach a goal. Not that I knew I was doing that, but it's just, hindsight's a great thing. And it was amazing. So whilst during that time, I'm learning to crochet, to stitch, to knit, to do embroidery, all the skills that one would expect of that era of, I don't know, if we say young lady coming out, and being presented in society type thinking, and all the skill set that I would require really as an adult. But that's in hindsight now, looking back and thinking about it, because all I could feel was that younger, first of all, I was abandoned by one parent, and now I've been abandoned by my other parent, and I've just been left. And what that did was that gave me the story that was to weave through all of my life, that I was not good enough. That's why I was left, in both scenarios. So fast forward the 2 years, I then, of course, wrote to him, and I was able to come home back to the UK. By that time, my stepmother had arrived here. So, and my brother was shortly born after that. So, but that was the start of something that I could never have known, that has taken years to understand, to look at. That was a skill set, the tools that my dad had in his toolbox at that time to cope with raising a daughter who was, okay, now we would say biracial, then we would say half caste. It was a different time. It was a time of adversity, and a time in the 70s. There was no D&I, a time that would propel me into a place of, the villagers would come to see me, because they had never seen, when you really try to think of that era, so there's no television, villagers had never seen an outsider. So they were in awe to see this white woman's daughter, come to the village, and she couldn't speak the language. So it feels very surreal now sharing that. It was a very powerful 2 years in my life, and one that really crafted the journey that I was going to be on for the rest of my life, really.
No, I appreciate you sharing that part of your journey. And again, I think it's so important because so many of us carry these stories from our childhood, from our upbringing, that no one knows, that when we schedule with someone, we don't know what they're holding behind the screen, or when we're, at an event together. And a couple of things you brought up that is important to say is, like, one, you probably are a great executive assistant because as an executive assistant, a lot of times you have to have grit and resilience, and you have to be able to figure things out very quickly and adjust very quickly because things are moving very fast, and you can be in very foreign territory in terms of your exec wants you to do something that you've never done before.
Oh, yeah.
You probably have, developed those skills at such a young age that being in this role, not to say it's easy, but that you had the skills that you could maybe transition a little bit easier than other people potentially. And I think the other point that I want to bring up before I ask you the next question is, our parents only do what they know and what they think at the time. I mean, you're a parent. I'm sure that you also try to do your best with what you have. I know that one day when I'm a parent, I'm going to do the best at what I have, and we don't always know the full story. Even with my own parents, sometimes I question things that they did when I was young, and sometimes you're never going to know all of their thought process. You have to trust and accept, and it's very hard to do that. So, you said it took you a long time, and I know that for myself, it's the same exact way, trying to rationalize certain things that our parents or people that are older, that we think that they should have all the answers and do the right thing, especially when you're a young child, and being able to learn from that and then do better going forward. So I just appreciate you sharing so much of your story with us. I mean, obviously there's so much more that we could learn. And that leads me to ask you, how did you first become an assistant? And did you think that this was what you were supposed to be when you were older? And did you think that you would still be in the career today?
Following on from that story, so fast forward to then finishing up at school at 16. And it absolutely wasn't an option to finish and to go to college or to university, because in that era, girls just, especially if you were from an Asian background, you just didn't have the same opportunities. And people were scared now. It was, you don't want to go out into the big world because then you're going to get all sorts of other thoughts in your head and what's going to happen. And, when we stay close and safe in a family framework, we can contain and control it. So there was never an option at that time for me to go into further education. So my father never wanted me to go to work, but I absolutely wanted to do something. So I enrolled myself onto the YTS, which is Youth Training Scheme, for 2 years. That was in a job with a company called Molly Maid, and a small franchise company, and absolutely amazing, Mel. So I worked there. So for the first year, I got paid £25, which is maybe $20 a week. And for the second year, it was £50. And oh my gosh, did I already know the value of money from my upbringing. And that just really, really enhanced that in me. And so I started there as a trainee, and at that time we used the phrase, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, Girl Friday. So a Girl Friday was somebody basically who just did everything, a bit of everything. So you sweep the floor, you got the coffees, you did the photocopying, you did the faxing, you did everything. So, but a great exposure, absolutely fabulous exposure to the world of admin and assistance. Before I joined there, when I was leaving school, I was still probably had a year at school left. I wanted to be a fashion designer. So I got some cards printed. Eastern Shimmer was what I was going to call my company, and got together with a friend. She sketched designs and I stitched them, because remember, I could stitch. And then I've always been very creative. And so that was a great, great piece to my puzzle of what was going to happen. So I absolutely loved it. We did a few bits. And for that time period of probably, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years, the majority of my clothes I stitched myself. that didn't work out, as in it wasn't going to be something that, I could earn money from. It was more of a passion project. So anyway, I started with Molly Maid, 2 years there. I turned 18 and I do have to say at the start of this story, Mel, I have been so privileged and so blessed with my opportunities. I got a job at GlaxoSmithKline and 18-year-old at Glaxo, and the irony was that at that time, the company was literally based on my road. The offices were on my road, so it was really close to home. Absolutely loved my job. I worked in marketing, and it was just such a rush, such a high. I went out with the marketing team to advertising agencies and saw how commercials were made, and it was a very, very special time, and I really loved it. During that time then, whilst I was in that role, I got married. I got married in the June and turned 21 in July. Shortly after, my role was being made redundant, and I was given an opportunity to go into the legal department, which was based in our headquarters closer to London. And I never forget it. I'd gone for my interview, and I think there were 4 stages to this interview for this process. And I remember walking down the corridor with the HR person, and the only voice I could hear was my own. And I had come from working in this manic marketing department of fun and pranks and, oh my God, just so much laughter. And I thought, oh, wow, this is super serious. And anyway, got the job. And I do have to admit and say that job lasted for 11 months. And I had a 3-month probation of where I could either accept the role or take the money, take the redundancy. And I chose to accept the role. But what had happened in those 3 months, I suppose I could really say that there was hardly a day when I got home and I wasn't in tears or I was upset, because my executive literally would bring me up on anything and everything. And this was the days when you sat outside the office. You were, they were in the office and you're sitting outside. And everybody could hear, she would be constantly shouting my name out from her office. And she was quite well known for going through assistants at a very fast pace. And I remember when my 3 months were up and my husband asked me what I was going to do, what my decision was, I said, I'm absolutely staying. And he said, why would you do that? Why would you do that when you've been so upset and so stressed out? And I said, because she has got so much to teach me. I am going to stick it out and I'm going to do my best. And I know that there's going to be a good outcome. 11 months later, an opportunity came up, a 2-grade higher job. So I was, 21, 22, worked for a VP. And that was super in those days that wasn't really heard of. You had to really work your way up to a senior level. And to this day, that team, that executive, gosh, one of the best roles I've ever been in. I absolutely loved it. And so to think she taught me so much, we became good friends and I got to, know her family and everything. It was an amazing outcome for me. But when we're in those moments of discomfort, it's so easy sometimes, Mel, to think, this is not working for me, and to jump ship. And I'm not saying, if something's really giving you angst or causing you unnecessary suffering, that you shouldn't move from it, because I have done that too. I've moved out of roles that didn't work for me. I'm very much, as Marie Forleo describes, when something comes to you and you're trying to make that decision, is it right for me or is it not? When your body gets bigger and expands, when you think about it and you're thinking on it, okay, yes, this is going to work for me. Okay, I might feel a bit nervous, or, is that excitement or nerves? Or is it really hurting my insides, it making me small and hunched down? Got to listen to your body. You've got to listen to your soul and know what the right decisions for you are. So then I fast forwarded to work for a VP, and I've been an assistant for over 25 years. I've taken time out of there where I've worked in charity and education. I wanted to leave the corporate world. So I did that for several years. And then I decided to come back, and I came back to a corporate world in 2017. And that was back with Coke. So yeah, it was, I just fell into it. And I think lots of assistants say that. I just fell into it, and it just felt very natural.
And I think that it's so interesting because now that I've done a couple of these episodes, there's so many themes that I think people are starting to see if they're listening to all of them. And a lot of times when I speak to the people that I have interviewed, a lot of the guests, whether so far or I'm going to be interviewing next, did not go to college right away. Some of them went to college later in life, or some people do not have a college degree at all. And that's always oh, well, I don't have a college degree. I've heard that many times, again, whether it's part of the podcast or outside of the podcast from specifically assistants. And I always tell those people, trust me, you'll learn that a lot of other assistants also don't have a college degree. I mean, so many people in other titles don't have college degrees, and you could still bring value to the world, to your bosses, to the teams that you support. Yes, a college degree could be great, but it's not everything. It's not, the marker that you have success or that you have knowledge. You can always learn in other ways. But I love that, and the way that you started into this role is super interesting, that you started at
Molly Maid.
Molly Maid. That's what I was going to say Molly May, but Molly Maid is so interesting because you graduated school early, right? 16, you said?
16, yeah, 16. But with that training scheme, you get to go to college once a week. So that was great.
Oh, okay.
So then I got my business studies diploma there. So that was good. But then also touching on that, Mal, it's really remembering there is no limit to studying or learning. Yes. We are constantly, oh my gosh, if I had the means to not work at all I would be doing would be studying. I would literally be head in books, which I am majority of the time anyway, but head in books, and just the more I study, the more I learn and read, the more I know nothing. I realize that absolutely, oh my gosh, there is so much out there.
I was going to say there's so much to learn. I also am a big learner. I love to read as well. And I tell people, again, you don't have to be in school to learn. You just have to seek out information. I used to live in a library, I feel like, when I was younger, because I love physical copies of books. I love being in a bookstore. I love being in a library. People ask me all the time why I don't watch TV. And a lot of the reasons why I don't watch TV shows is because I usually watch documentaries or I usually listen to podcasts because, again, I just love to learn. Do you have a certain turning point or a critical moment in your career that sticks out to you?
I mean, I have many. Like I said, I'm very privileged, but I think one of my earliest memories was when I was in this said role, young at Glaxo, working with this VP. And at that time, when I look back on it, I mean, I was fearless, and I had it felt like there was nothing stopping me and the world was my oyster. That's how I felt. And so I had been so lucky in this role. So my executive, my VP, was very supportive of learning, and I'd been on a 2-day conference. And at that time, now that conference was, I don't know, just under £2,000. It was a lot. And this was like back in the day. And so that was a lot of money. And I remember coming back and sharing it like I would now, sharing it with other executive, assistants, personal assistants then. And nobody said that they could go. I was recommending that they go. That the reasons were, 1, they didn't have the budget, and 2, they weren't going to be allowed out of the office for 2 days. And I was like, gosh, okay. So as I spoke to more and more assistants, it was the same answer. So then I thought, you know what, let me see if I can create that conference and bring it to them. So I asked my VP if he would support me, and he said absolutely. So I reached out to the speakers that spoke at that conference, and would they do it, for goodwill? I didn't have a budget, and they absolutely, said yes. So then I thought, who could open this very important conference? I booked a local hotel. So that was really my overhead, the hotel and the catering. I know I'm going to go to Jan Leschly, our CEO's office, like you do. I mean, when I stopped to think, I don't know who I thought I was, and connected with his secretary. We were secretaries then, connected with the secretary. She said to come over, and I remember going over and found a date. And absolutely, she said he was going to speak at our conference. And then as the date came closer, something else came up, but then he sent one of his LT, James Hill. I think just like we started this conversation, Mal, we can't know the power in connection. We can't know the power in conversation. Oh my gosh, you can't know the power in just asking. If you don't ask, if you don't reach out to people and share your why, I mean, it was a very good why. You know, how do you know how people are going to react? And I just thought that was a massive win at that time. Oh my gosh, you know, that he said yes. Well, you know, that she said yes on his behalf. That led me to a whole nother way of thinking of, would that role as a senior C-suite assistant be something that I'd be interested in? At that time, I hadn't started a family. And then the more I looked into it, the more I thought about it. I thought, wow, this feels and sounds like it's a 24-hour commitment, which I can't make because I have family commitments. And so I steered myself away from that career path then. But then I was lucky enough to receive an award for that conference. So that was a great accolade at that time. So I think that was the beginning of me actually realizing the power that we have. And I never refer to myself as just an assistant, because as assistants, more than an admin, we have so much power that I don't even think a lot of the time we realize.
I totally agree. And I love that story because, again, it shows how fearless you are. And it also hopefully will inspire, especially younger assistants. I mean, assistants of all ages, but especially younger assistants. If you have an idea, don't just hold yourself back because you think it's not worthwhile pursuing. Of course, you still have to be respectful about the way of doing it. But all you did was ask, and all you did was put together a plan and showcase to people, like you said, your why. And I think that a big thing that assistants don't realize how important it is storytelling and sharing your why and showcasing your passion. Because I think a lot of times, truly, sometimes the only reason why people like More Than an Admin or like things that I'm doing is because I'm so passionate in sharing it, and like all of my energy is in it. And I've spoken to people myself who have great ideas, but I can tell that they're not passionate about it. And I'm kind of, not that I don't think it's, again, a good idea, but I'm like, I don't know if this person really loves their idea. And I think a lot of admins have to realize that if you showcase your passion, if you showcase your why, and you're able to share a really good story around it, most people, I think, will support you in some sense, whether it's your executives, your admin team, the greater admin community. And I think that that's what you did, is you had a good story and you really showed your passion behind it. And now you have founded your own Oculus Creative Learning. And I'm curious if you can share a little bit with our audience what that is and your story behind finding it.
Well, actually, all of what you just said. So I'm a very big Marie Forleo fan. And in her words, as she describes herself as a multi-passionate creative, I started listening to her a couple of years ago. And actually, so I've had a bit of a tech sandwich. So I've been contracting at Microsoft, then contracted at Google, and then back at Microsoft again. And so with my first assignment at Microsoft, the idea came for Oculus Creative Learning. It's a space created around, like you just said, actually understanding people's why around personal and professional development, but really keeping them at the heart of that piece of training, creating bespoke training, especially for them, and really laced with storytelling and lived experiences. So something I'm focusing on at the moment that I'm looking to launch in the new year would be 2 training pieces around framing confidence and imposter syndrome. Because as a child, as a teenager, as a 20-something, 30-something, imposter syndrome, Mal, was never part of my vocabulary, never heard of it, didn't know what it was. And then as I got to learn more, I absolutely recognized that I suffered from that in such a massive way. Even though sharing the story I just did about the conference, in that moment, it probably didn't seem like it. But then I had a period in my life where, I don't know, I think I used perfectionism as a coping mechanism. And that just became, oh my gosh, that was exhausting. So that was a really difficult period for me. So imposter syndrome, is top of mind for me. And also having emotional intelligence at the heart of everything. I choose to live my life today. I choose to live my life with empathy, kindness, and forgiveness. Okay, if the first question that you asked when we started this podcast was what brought joy, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is thank God for seeing another day. Because quite frankly, there's no more bigger blessing than that I'm still here. And then I weave gratitude into every single part of my day. And it's the small things and the big things. It doesn't have to be. When I look at my gratitude journey and my journal, all those things that are listed in there are for free. It would be a walk, a walk in the cold, crisp air. It would be kicking the leaves as you're having your evening walk. It's all those small things. During COVID times when we were in lockdown, it was playing, and I never forget it. It was the boys, my son's playing ping pong, table tennis on the island in the kitchen. So it's all those things that bring so much joy. And so during COVID, we created a memory jar. I started a memory jar, and just putting all those things that you take for granted. COVID came along, and what did it give us? It gave us opportunity to spend so much more time with our loved ones, to have real conversations, to really understand what's important and what's just stuff. There is so much opportunity out there. And if I was giving somebody advice, it would be to say yes to those things that make us uncomfortable. Say yes to those asks that we sort of think, I don't know if I can do that. I don't even understand what that ask is, especially as assistants. I'm constantly thinking about, really, can I really do that piece of tech? Because I'm the least tech person in the room. So understanding what it is and then saying yes, and just that feeling that you get when you've achieved something that was new to you. So Oculus Creative Learning supports us on that journey and has given me a platform I had already started to do public speaking, but to really create a space around storytelling and creating bespoke training.
I love it. Especially when you spoke about emotional intelligence, because I think this is very important. I think a lot of times I will speak to assistants about wishing that sometimes leaders had more emotional intelligence, but I think that there's a lot of people in our community that also struggle with it. A lot of times when you see assistants have conflict with each other, because we're not immune to having conflict or drama in our own community. I think a lot of it is people need to remember to invest in emotional intelligence. And it's sometimes very hard for people themselves to identify. But I think as there's more spaces and people get questioning, what is emotional intelligence, or do I have this? The right people will find you in your programs and be able to increase their emotional intelligence. And I think also imposter syndrome is a huge thing that many assistants also struggle with. So I love that you're tapping into both of those. And I know that you also have a penny for your thoughts, which I would love for you to also share about.
Penny for your thoughts. Oh my gosh, that was born last January. So January 2021, again, during the pandemic, when we were all looking for ways to connect and to pay something forward and to build those communities and give back. So I host Penny for Your Thoughts with Winnie King, a very good friend. It was created at that time, and originally we sort of thought we were honing in on the public sector. We wanted to give back to the NHS, to all the people that were doing such amazing community work, and a space where they could come to, generally it's an hour and a half, and a place where they could come and share their story. It's not recorded, it's safe, where you'd be supported. So we'd have speakers on, and I was thinking about it earlier. The speakers would come on, and when I say speakers, I mean, very close friends of mine or people that I know, and I know their background and their story, and they would really authentically share. And the power, Mal, was just, oh my gosh. I mean, it got to a stage where we host it monthly, and it got to a stage where I was known to just always needed a tissue, because there were always going to be tears from me, because as an empath, you just take that on. When somebody is wholeheartedly sharing their journey, it was such an honor to host that space. And just that, if you can inspire and touch one person's life, it's amazing. And we are very lucky to get really good positive feedback on those episodes. It's based around whatever's really current. The next episode in December is going to be around laughter and wins from the year. I mean, wins and what worked well. We know that phrase so well. Now, what worked well and what could worked better.
Yes.
And around laughter, because we just don't do enough of it.
I love that. I'm definitely going to come if my schedule allows. So I have to see what exact date and time that is. And we'll put in the show notes how people can sign up and of course your website, because I think that that's an awesome topic of just laughter. Because like you said, I don't think you have to, actually, I think you have to have laughter or in this career to really get by. And I think that that's for me, when I've been through some really tough times, I have to find the humor. And those are the people that I love working with. People know that I will ping them, I will message them and try to be joking around some bizarre scheduling request or a bizarre event request. And I think that you have to, not you have to, but it is more enjoyable when you find the laughter in even the hardest moments. So I love that you're highlighting laughter for our community, because like I said, I think more of us need to laugh about things, even the failures. And like you said, before, I think that I was listening to a Talks at Google a couple days ago, and it was by Daniel Pink, who has the new book, The Power of Regret. He was talking about how most people regret things that they didn't do. And that's definitely in my life. If I look back, most of the things that I regret are things that I decided not to do versus going for. And because a lot of times, even if you fail, you can course correct very soon and you can make adjustments. And again, that you can hopefully find some laughter in it afterwards. Even the worst things that you could take regrets on. And even if you lose money, there is a way to find some, even if it's dark humor in something, as long as your intentions are good and you're not, intentionally doing something horrible. But I'm glad that you have a penny for your thoughts. I'm hopefully going to see a lot more of people from the More Than an Admin community in there. And just thank you for doing that, because so many this is why I'm so inspired by you and see you as a role model, is every time you speak, I'm like, wow, I say the same exact things myself. We're so aligned on what the mission is, to what you're doing, to what I'm doing, to create psychological safety, to be empaths and really feel people's stories and just be so, again, connected to people. I just love what you're doing. And the other thing that we have in common is we both got into life coaching and just coaching in general. And I'm curious about how, again, you were inspired to get into the life coaching space and what has been your experience so far.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love coaching. There's 168 hours in the week. And if I could spend a lot of those coaching, I literally would. So I started coaching, got my certificate my diploma last January. I had to think when it was then. And it's always been there on the radar. So when I took a break from the corporate world, at that time I was reading, it was a very aha moment. I was literally in the foyer of a corporation and I was going for an interview. I was reading the Dalai Lama, The Art of Happiness. I come away from the interview and I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. I need to do something else. And it needs to be around education, charity. I need to give back in some way. So I did a few different roles and then I went back full circle. And that's how, like I said, a lot of my story began in a certain way, but I had to come full circle for my own healing and understanding. So I went back to the primary school that I attended and I became an attendance leader and taught social and emotional learning and circle time in the afternoon so this would be children aged from say 5 to 10. I had the opportunity there's an amazing nunnery in Oxfordshire that I was able to go to and become a family links group facilitator and a leader. And that program is based around nurturing, so supporting families who need that. And it's a 10-week program that I taught. And when I came back from there, I thought, oh my gosh, this is like amazing. So then I did that program, I taught that, and I went back to college. I decided I wanted to become a counsellor, and the person that I shared an office with was a counsellor, and I absolutely wanted to do that. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back to college as an adult learner. And I tell you, Mel, oh my goodness, like the anxiety of like turning up for day one thinking I'm going to be the oldest person in the building. Oh my God, what am I doing? And walking into the foyer, and I sort of very meek and mild sat down with my coffee, grabbed a coffee and sat down, and I could overhear this group of women talking, and I realized that they were also there for the same class. So I went and introduced myself, and the rest is history, as they say. I didn't go on to do the diploma. I did the certificate, and that was absolutely an eye-opening experience of empathy, integrity, and so many different wow. So that, I suppose, created the path for me. One organization I worked with, I was a listening ear there. So I've always sort of, I've been a mentor. I've been in so many different, I suppose, on that journey, paths that led there. And then last year I decided, this is again during COVID, I absolutely want to do it. And I am loving it. I am loving it. So with the Lifestyle Institute, who I'm a lecturer with, I have done a coaching group. I have just scheduling my individual coaching sessions. And I also do coaching outside of that as well. And I think that space, that opportunity that we give, so when I was doing the counseling, so the counseling was all about, that's about understanding what happened, where, why, what. But the coaching is all about the future. How are we going to reach those goals? What are we going to do? What's the path we're going to take? And that just fills me with so much joy to be able to create a space for 60 minutes or however long your session is, where you are going to be in a position to have that dialogue with somebody and to be able to create that framework and craft those next steps with them. I mean, like I said, if out of 168 hours I could do many of them coaching, I absolutely love it.
What do you think makes a good coach for those that might be, especially admins that might be wanting to get into coaching at some point in their life? What do you think makes a good coach?
Being non-judgmental and listening, and not just listening like intently, but really listening with your heart and open mind and hearing the other person. I think that really supports the coaching experience.
I think something else that you have that I often say is great is someone that is very self-aware and has done the healing journey. Obviously, you're always going to be on a healing journey, but someone that has started it themselves. And I think that's something that's very rare about a lot of people, is being really self-aware and knowing what it is to go on a healing journey. Because oftentimes, I think during coaching sessions, what holds people back is what they haven't healed from yet. And I think something that, again, makes you a great coach is just having that perspective of, one, being self-aware and also having gone through so much of your own journey, to where you know that, again, if you're judging someone, if you have a bias, you at least know where that's coming from. Like you're saying, being non-judgmental, listening. These are things that are again, good if you are self-aware, if you can catch yourself during some moments or trying to lead someone down a certain path. A lot of, again, that stems from things I think that we haven't healed from or haven't uncovered within ourselves. With you have done a lot of that work. So, this is my fangirl moments, obviously, of this podcast, is just continuing to tell the world how much I just respect and love you as a human being. And
oh, bless you. Thank you so much.
But also, what is your niche? Do you have a specific niche that you coach? Do you coach just admins? Do you coach other people?
So funny enough, it aligns right with Oculus Creative Learning, and that would be around confidence and imposter syndrome. I think that has to, for me, it just really stems from there. So many things when we are not putting ourselves forward, like I said, and saying yes and taking that seat at the table. Why not? What's the why? How do we dig deeper to understand what that is? Well, you want to be able to do this. That is on your vision board. How do we work towards making that happen? And I'm very into vision boards, and, that's part of my own gratitude. And so it's really just channeling those ideas and those thoughts, and really having those deeper meaning conversations as to why, what's stopping us. And like I said, it's different because it's different from counselling, but there will be certain elements that will come up because obviously something is blocking and has created the imposter syndrome or framing confidence. So yes, so it's not just for admins, but it feels like and seems like a lot of my work is around the admin world. And that's going to happen because I'm a massive networker. And a lot of the communities and committees that I'm part of are in the admin world.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said before, that you are a lecturer at the Lifestyle Institute. So what are the exact classes that you teach? And again, how can people sign up if they're interested?
So Lifestyle Institute is, the education there is based around knowledge, lifestyle and creativity. And it's a very bespoke, it's a postgraduate. Lifestyle Institute is based in Barcelona. So I'd love to say I'm teaching from Barcelona. I'm not. I am teaching online. I cover a very large variety of topics as a lecturer with them. So I cover some of the things. I cover inbox management, calendars. I cover emotion intelligence. I cover philanthropy because this is a particular lifestyle. So philanthropy is really important. I cover networking, building relationships and weaving that excellence through everything we do, as whether you're an assistant, you call yourself an admin, executive assistant, chief of staff, it's all the same. That excellence is required through all we do. And when we do it with integrity, it creates that space. So that's what Lifestyle Institute is all about. And this is the third postgraduate that started 3 weeks ago. So yes, I teach remotely. The postgraduates ends in February, but I can share details of where people who may be interested in. It's a very bespoke lifestyle because it is supporting. So in that world, you're called a personal angel, not a personal assistant, and you are working with high net worth individuals.
Oh, interesting. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah.
Since you are a lecturer, and I'm curious, if you could design one class that every person in the administrative professional industry could take in their career, what would it be? And it could be absolutely anything. It doesn't have to be like a technical thing.
Well, first of all, it definitely couldn't be a technical thing because I don't have the capacity to create that. It would be around empowerment. I think when we know who we are and we really believe in ourselves, I personally feel that anything is possible. When we are in that space, Mal, oh my gosh, so much changes. So things just, you feel like things just align, but you've got to know, you've got to show up, you've got to be in a space of contentment and gratitude. And when you are in that space, the stars align. So, somebody recently said to me, when I'm looking into your life, I feel like your life is like a fairy tale. And I said to her, I have worked so hard to create that sparkle because I'm all about the sparkle. And I've really grafted. And wow, I couldn't have known that, coming back to Microsoft, I was going to be offered reduced hours. So that's what I was looking for. So I could obviously focus on Oculus creative learning. And when I asked, they said yes. I mean, they approached me. So it was, you can't know. And people, I think, so much respect you for bringing your true self to the role. And I learnt that. Honestly, Mal, I don't want to end this podcast without shouting out to all the admins at Google. Okay. When I was there, I was in awe. I'm not there. I'm still in awe. And I was thinking about it. I never forget when I joined, just that it's like nowhere else. It's that feeling of being welcomed and supported and kindness that I felt when I was there. And I think there is so much support in the admin community that I felt when I was there. And I think we've got so much to give. And I think sometimes we do ourselves an injustice. We are leaders. And something I teach is the power that we have as assistants, those of us that are big into, like, spend, 90% of our times in somebody's calendar, that is, you can't pay for that. So whether you're a high net worth individual or whether you're an executive or an assistant, whatever your role or job title is, we all share the same amount of time. Mm-hmm. So if we're in a position to be able to create and bulldoze our way through calendars and audit them and give time back to our executives, I'm sorry, but that is one of the most powerful attributes that we can hold. So it's that belief. So if I was creating a workshop, that's what it would be around.
Amazing. And yes, shout out to the Google admin community. We want you back. So, we'll definitely have to steal you from Microsoft back at some point, because I'm very upset with Microsoft right now. But I am very happy that you saw the support from our community, and you are a huge champion for women and how we can champion each other instead of competing with each other. And there's tons of women, although we love the men and people that identify as other ways in our community.
Yes.
But there are tons of women within the administrative professional field. And I'm curious about, how do we create a better culture of supporting each other?
I think firstly, it's respecting and understanding, we're all different. Some of us are introverts, extroverts, or extroverted introverts, and some of us just don't like going to networking events and being in that type of space. And for those people and for those moments, it's really listening, looking out. And if I want to reach out to somebody, I will do it on, predominantly for me, the platform's always going to be LinkedIn. Ask. If you see somebody or on LinkedIn, or you see a post and you want to say something, reach out to them, say it, connect with them, tell them, what you think, tell them how you feel. I think there's so much power in sharing that sometimes we don't realize that. Go to networking events, connect with people, and even from not just a professional capacity, but from a personal capacity. Now, our mothers, our sisters, our aunts, our cousins, our daughters, all those people, women, beautiful women that we have. Of the era that I was in, I was one of the first women in my family to work outside the home. Nobody had had a job outside. And now I look at the amazing, strong women that I have in my family. I have 3 brothers and 2 sons, but I have so many women in my extended family, and kudos to them. And they are so inspiring, and they're running their businesses. They're running their homes. They are leading in the jobs that they're in. And it's so fabulous. Reach out and tell them. So I'm always WhatsApping people, just telling them and shining. I think when we shine our light outwards, it's that famous, when whatever you put out to the world, it's already come back to you. And I think lift and inspire other women rather than, taking that shine or that light away. Be there, build that community. Oh my gosh, there's more than enough opportunity for us all. There absolutely is. So why do we not share it? I think we're getting better, but I think we can still do so much. And honestly, Mal, actively surround yourself with people like that, because when you do, it's just so organic and it's effortless.
Yes. And I love that you talk a lot about giving other people praise and giving other people their flowers, because I think that sometimes people wait and sit to be recognized, but really, once you go out and do this for other people, you're going to realize it will come back to you in some way. And I think that's a great reminder. And
100%.
You mentioned LinkedIn, which again, this is how I found out about you, via LinkedIn. And we're both big, I think, LinkedIn users right now. And I'm curious for you, do you have a favorite feature, favorite thing that you like to do on LinkedIn, number one? And second, do you have any advice for admins who are just starting out or maybe don't use LinkedIn that much right now?
I don't have a favorite feature or thing on LinkedIn. I just love, I have to stop myself scrolling on LinkedIn. I could just get sucked into that. It's just absolutely amazing. I love it. It's my favorite platform and tool. And I just find now it could just be the algorithm or, just the connections I have. I just get so much inspiration from LinkedIn, and so many of my major opportunities in this space have come from LinkedIn. A lot of my speaking opportunities came from LinkedIn. When I was featured, when I was at Coke and I did the feature in PA Life, when they interviewed me for that was an amazing opportunity, and having the photo shoot, and oh my gosh, like doing that at Coke with all those backdrops. It was so much fun. That came from LinkedIn. So, you know, it's the power. I mean, I can't stress enough here the power of LinkedIn. And what I would say would be, don't be shy. I recommend that people follow companies that they're inspired by, that they want to align with, and then they look at the people that are in those companies. And if they find that, you know, they have a mutual thing that they share, that they like, or they have an interest, reach out to them, always try to add a note and follow them. And it's just, I think, comment as well. You have to comment on people's posts. That's what I would say. I mean, I generally do make an effort to comment on people's posts.
You definitely do.
Reshare them.
I do. You definitely do. I always see you popping up in my feed, not just on my own posts, but on other people's posts. And I'm always wanting to know what you're thinking. So I love it.
Oh, no, I do. And I just think, you know what, if somebody, and you know, Mal, and so do I, it takes time and can take time to create a post and put it. It's not just, oh yeah, I know what I'm going to say. And I'm just literally, it's going to take me minutes. The other day I did, it like took me up to an hour. Posts take time. So when somebody comments on it, or you know that they've read it and they're thinking about it and they've taken the time to say something, that means something.
It takes so much energy to post on social media something that's meaningful and not just like, you know, a half naked bikini picture or, you know, like a selfie, unless a selfie has meaning, but you have to like write about it. And so I think that a lot of times also when I see people's posts, I also try to think about what can I write underneath there that would spark maybe future conversation or to contribute. Like if someone has, the other day, someone had recommendation for books, so I put a book on there, like just trying to actually, because I hate also when I post something and then no one responds, you're like, oh, I just wasted so much time and energy coming up with this. So I totally feel you on that. And I think I genuinely think a lot of admins do not invest enough time in LinkedIn. I mean, even just having one professional photo can make your profile really stand out. And we're seeing that there's major layoffs in the tech industry right now.
Yes.
No one is really immune. I am constantly on LinkedIn looking for recruiting admins to Google. That's a huge other reason why I use LinkedIn. And when I see someone's profile, it's not just about you working at like a cool company or supporting a cool person. It's just that, oh, wow, they have a nice summary where I can kind of get to know them. Oh, I see that they don't just have job titles. They have what they actually did in each role. Oh, they're posting a lot, which means that they're going to want to contribute to the admin community when they come to Google as well. They're going to be a contributor. They're not just going to consume, or they're not just going to sit there and not have a voice. These are all things that I'm kind of looking at, especially even when people send me their resume. I go to LinkedIn right away to see how active they are. And again, it's not necessarily means that they're not going to get a job, but it just gives you a greater chance of having someone, again, know who you are and want to work with you. And if you want to be a great applicant and a great candidate, you can use LinkedIn to really showcase who you are, because you don't have any limits on LinkedIn. A resume, it's usually 1 to 2 pages, but on LinkedIn, you can really show your personality and all of the things you've done that makes your resume kind of come to life. So I think that it's so important, and that you stress it too, with engaging, with being a creator in some sense, and not just having a page, but not having, again, a photo, or not having anything else besides just having kind of a very bare bones page on there.
Yeah, no, totally. And actually, a lot of, when it comes to recruitment, one of the first thing we're going to do is look at the LinkedIn profile. And in so many cases, you don't even need a resume or a CV. You just look at that person's LinkedIn profile, and that's what you're going to go by. And I also absolutely agree with you. It's such an underutilized tool, because I know so many admins who are not. They literally just have a profile, but it's a profile for a profile's sake, and they are not utilizing that space. Like I said, the power that comes from that tool is amazing.
Even once I had my manager say, and a couple other executives, oh, wow, I saw your post the other day. I'm like, really? You saw my post? Like, I did not think that they would be interested. They're like, yeah, it was so cool. You posted X, Y, and Z. So it's something also to just remember that it's not just about the admin community, but it's also about executives. And maybe executives see something that they connect with, and they want to work with you. So it's great. again, not just with the admin community, but with executives and people in other fields as well.
Absolutely.
So we've learned a lot about you so far, but I'm curious, is there anything that you wish more people knew about you or your life that you feel like people don't know or that might be surprised to learn about you?
I think everybody knows me that I absolutely adore everything to do with books. I think maybe people don't know that I also, I can't believe I'm saying this, that I really enjoy cleaning. And cleaning and sorting. And yes, I've just got my recent home edit book that arrived last week. I love that Netflix show. And yeah, so it's an interesting thing. And I think it goes back to, it aligns with my job, the way I process things. It feels very natural and organic for me to go through each room in my house and sort things and clean things and have everything in order. And it's just a process that I have to go through that I find it incredibly therapeutic. And it's also a business that I've thought of, starting up, because I just get a lot of pleasure from it. So that sounds probably really strange. No, I just love it.
That's awesome. I'm a big laundry person. I like doing laundry and I like vacuuming. So those are my two things that also I like as well. What do you think, this is a deep question as well, is what do you think is one of your life's purposes?
If I can be remembered, or the purpose being that I have had a conversation with somebody or been in a room and they're going to remember me when I've left for how I've made them feel and not what I said. There's some of that Maya Angelou quote in there as well, that people will remember not what you said, but how you made them feel. It is that. And I think there's such a lot of power in that, because now we're always in a rush. We're always in a hurry. So when you open the door to the Uber Eats guy or the Amazon deliveries that we have way too much of, and have a conversation with them. When you're, at the checkout and you're getting your groceries, I always talk to the person that's, doing my shopping and bagging it. Or if somebody's stacking the shelves and I'm walking past them, I'll have a little conversation. I think recognizing, acknowledging people and seeing them. I remember Oprah saying that what does everybody near enough that comes onto her show have in common? Everybody just wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be heard and acknowledged. And I think when we can do that in our own small ways, from the moment we enter our buildings, if we're going into the office, and all the people that we can connect with during that day. And if you just said one nice thing, one kind thing, my God, wouldn't the place that we live in and work in, wouldn't it just be amazing?
Definitely. And now we're on to the last question before the rapid fire round, which I love that you actually know this podcast. So if you're listening and this is the first time, we have a tradition that we have stolen from Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO podcast, where we ask the last question. The question is from the previous speaker, and no one knows who is the person who is sharing it, because I record these a little bit out of order too. So this question that we have for today is, what do you think will it take for admins to be considered an integral part of corporate America and be compensated appropriately?
I think actually all the things that I've already mentioned, when we truly and honestly know our worth and we bring that into the conversation and we ask that, when it's like when we're fishing for something, when we're fishing with a rod, we know we're going to catch a fish. When we're fishing with a net, what are we going to catch? It's so much more. Yeah. And I think when we say yes to those opportunities that make us really uncomfortable, and we put ourselves, in those situations of whether, I know at Google, it was a 20% extra. At Microsoft, it's stretch assignments. When we put our hands up and we are visible, when we are part of those teams and we're not just the person in the room that's taking the notes or the minutes, we are contributing to the conversation wholeheartedly, putting our hands up. We're sitting there, we don't have a title. I think when we allow others to see our value and what we can bring to the table, that is a game changer. That has been my experience. definitely. So I think really putting your hand up and being seen.
Amazing. So now we're on the rapid fire round, and you are going to fill in the blank to all of these. Samina's guilty pleasure is
going out for afternoon teas, which is drinking way too much tea and eating way too much cake.
Oh my gosh, I love that. When I come to London sometimes, or the
Now,
UK rather, we will have to go.
We will, absolutely.
Because I'm a big tea drinker. Samina's favorite hype song or artist is?
Artist, I love Michael Bublé, and song would be Queen, Don't Stop Me Now.
Samina's favorite part of the holiday season coming up is?
Christmas, because I'm all about sparkle.
One of Samina's favorite books is?
I think out of everything we've talked about today, the books is going to be the hardest because there are so many books. I am surrounded by them. But funny you asked me that question. I have a book here, Big Panda and Tiny Dragon, and it's the most beautiful. And I go through stages now where I gift different books. Like that will be the book and I'll be gifting it to everyone. This is that book. And if you allow me to, I just want to read from that book. There have been so many difficulties along this path, said Tiny Dragon. There have, agreed Big Panda, but we have learned something from each one. And imagine how good the view will be when we reach the top. That's just, I've gifted it to so many people, and you can just open it and every page just has the most beautiful illustration and words on. So yeah, that is one of my top favorite hundreds at the moment.
Yes, we're both readers, and I'm going to put that book in the show notes as well so that people can order it if they're interested. Samina thinks every admin should blank at least once in their career.
Public speaking. It's the most terrifying thing that you can do when you start it, but the confidence that comes from public speaking is like no other.
I'm going to do something I normally don't do and ask you a follow-up question to this, which is, do you have a pre-game or post-game, as I like to call it, like ritual or any kind of things that you do before, after a speaking engagement?
Something I do, I will do breathing exercises before, and I will also do a great power pose because that's really important for me to feel grounded and be connected to, literally rooted to the earth, to feel that I've got this, feeling strong. And you can just almost imagine the roots coming up and just holding on to you and just supporting you whilst you're doing it. So yeah.
Amazing. One thing still on each of Samina's professional and personal bucket lists are?
To write a book.
I would love to read that. And then the last one is Samina is more than?
Your perception.
Is there anything else top of mind that we didn't get to cover so far that you'd like to before we close out?
I think the only thing that I would like to say, we did touch on it, is gratitude. When we lead our lives with gratitude, so many opportunities come our way, and the power that comes from the essence of being grateful, I don't think is like any other. And what I mean by that is not having a happy, joyous life and practicing gratitude by journaling. I mean practicing gratitude, which in turn will give you the most amazing life. So take the opportunity to create your best life. And gratitude is one of those ways of doing that.
Well, this is a great segue because I cannot thank you enough. And I'm so grateful to LinkedIn and Google for bringing you into my life and now bringing you to this podcast so that everyone else, again, in our community can learn more about you and your story. You shared so much with us, being so vulnerable, so open, so brave. And I really think that a lot of people are going to reach out to you and also be admiring you like I have. And I just look forward to the day where I can come to the UK and we can unite in person. I'm really hoping 2023 or 2024, I can make it happen once my book's out. And I'm so grateful and appreciate you. So where can people best connect with you and how can our community support you?
First of all, Mal, thank you so much for creating this space and this platform. Oh my gosh, I've been loving the series and the episodes so far. Absolutely amazing. And when you connected and we first had our conversation, I just knew that we were going to be soul sisters. This was so much more than just a networking opportunity. So the honor and privilege is all mine. So really, really thank you. People can connect to me on LinkedIn, with me on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram too, but predominantly I live in LinkedIn, and also on my website, oculuscreativelearning.com. And I'm always happy to have a conversation, whether that's online or scheduling something in the calendar. And you can do that via LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect there. So please reach out to me.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the More Than an Admin podcast. Make sure you have subscribed. And if you're feeling a little generous, please also leave a review because we love your feedback. And remember to share this podcast with those around you. If you're looking for more content, check out morethananadmin.com, our YouTube channel, or follow us at morethananadmin on all platforms. If you're looking to connect directly with me, you can find me at Mallory is More on all platforms or search for me on LinkedIn. Let's continue together to influence how the world views administrative professionals and help admins embrace all aspects of their identity to become their best selves. Remember, you are more than your job title, and the best is still yet to come. I'll talk with you soon.